The book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament in the Bible was written by King Solomon. King Solomon became king after his father David died. And what's sad about the story of Solomon is that Solomon started out great, and then he had a very terrible set of decisions that led him to a bad place, mostly out of idolatry. He took on wives from places that he shouldn't have. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. His story is told in the book of Kings in the Bible. And what I want to talk about today, as well as Chronicles, but what I want to talk about today is this book called Ecclesiastes and how it can be a guide for young people especially, but for everyone in general. So, Ecclesiastes has 12 chapters. You could join me over the next few weeks as we go through the book of Ecclesiastes, starting from chapter 1. Before I start, I want to say that one of my passions is talking about how to live. My name is Amos Tarfa with Living Sensibly with Amos Tarfa. One of my passions is this topic of how to live. And I have several books here that talk about different aspects of living a life that makes sense. I have the biography of John Wesley. I have a book here called Money and Marriage, God's Way, which I'm going to be reading with my family. And then I also have books for those who might be younger that want to learn lessons for life. And so we're going to start from chapter 1, and we're going to look at lessons and themes that can help us in living in this day and age that we live in. Especially if you live in a society that puts materialism on a very high level, then this teaching will be very encouraging to you. Unfortunately, the Bible says, or the reality is the Bible says that in the last days, men will be lovers of themselves, right? They'll be lovers of pleasure, and so on and so forth. So let's learn from someone who had all that he could have and what he did with it and how he got in trouble. So, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it arose. The wind goes towards the south and turns around to the north. The wind whirls about continually, and it comes again on its circuit. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the rivers come, there they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which it may be said, see, this is new? It has already been in ancient times before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who will come after. Verse 12, I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I set my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under heaven. This burdensome task God has given to the sons of man, by which they may be exercised. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and indeed all is vanity and grasping for the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be numbered. I communed with my heart, saying, look, I have attained greatness, and I have gained more wisdom than all who were before me in Jerusalem. My heart was understood great wisdom and knowledge. And I set my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is grasping for the wind. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Here's the deal. This is especially very important for people who are thinking about college or go to college. What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of it all? We have to ask those questions because unfortunately, if we don't have the right compass and perspective, we are literally just grasping for the wind and wasting the lives that we've been given. Now, in Solomon's case, he started off great. He offered sacrifices to the Lord. The Lord told him that I will, give you wisdom more than anybody else because, God asked him, what do you want? And he said, I want wisdom to lead your people. And then we hear about the story of the prostitutes and their child. And actually, one of them lost their child and the other one had the child. But they came to Solomon and asked Solomon, whose child is this? It's my child. It's my child. They're fighting. And Solomon solved that problem. We see that he had wisdom to do that. Again, you can go back to the book of 1 Kings. And I highly encourage you to read through the Bible chronologically. I have a Bible reading plan on my website called livingsensibly.org. livingsensibly.org, and right on the top of the website you'll see Bible reading plan, and it's chronological, and you could go to the section where it says Kings and you could read through the kings and the prophets and see who lived when and what happened, right? And so Solomon started out great, but then he gets married to these women that turn his heart away from God, and now he's talking about the situation that he's found himself in, right? Solomon had everything, and yet he found that this is not going to work. So here's the thing then. Let's think about this logically. If somebody who had everything is saying this is not going to work, how do you and I think that aspiring to get everything is going to solve our problem? Clearly it's not, because he got to that point, right? In calculus, we talk about limits. He got to the limit. He got to a point where he had everything and he wasn't satisfied. You and I will never be satisfied if we pursue after only stuff. And what's also interesting, Blaise Pascal says, is that there's a God-shaped hole in man, right? That only God can fill. There's nothing that can fill that hole. So where do we go from here? From Ecclesiastes chapter 1. We see that materialism does not satisfy. No matter how much you have, it's not going to be enough, quote unquote. You might want more. So you want to watch your heart and guard against covetousness. And Jesus talks about this in the New Testament, in the Gospels. And so we need to go back to the basics, ask ourselves, what's the meaning of life? And Psalm 19:1 is a great response, as well as Ecclesiastes 12:1. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Ecclesiastes 12:1 says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Psalm 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose for which we're here? To live for the glory of God, to lift high the name of the one who created us for his purposes. God is the creator. We are not. Our purpose needs to be living for the one who made us, because he knows how we ought to live. That's the meaning of life fundamentally. Living for the one who made us. We're going to go through the remaining chapters of Ecclesiastes week by week. We've looked at Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Let me know your thoughts, comments, questions, objections regarding any of these issues so that we can work through them. I teach math, science, and apologetics. I love encouraging people to live lives that make sense. And let me end with this book here. This is a book called How to Live. You can see it's very old. If you ever see a book like this, you know that it has some nuggets. And it says Life Studies or How to Live. Part of what you're going to learn this is from 1857, the publishing here. Part of what you're going to learn as we go through this in Ecclesiastes is you're going to learn how to live. So please, if you know any college students, send this teaching to them, because it will be very important when they get to college, so they keep their compass right, so they know where they're headed. Colleges are bombarded with a lot of nonsense in many arenas, whether it's in the moral decadence, which was there during the time of Newton. Isn't that interesting? Newton said, I don't have time for these parties, right? So it's interesting that it says nothing is new under the sun. Kids have been partying for a long time. People have been doing stupid things for a long time, right? That has been happening for a long time. Now, by the way, stupid is not an insult. It's a statement of fact. It means lacking intelligence. People have been doing things that are lacking intelligence for a long time. Okay, so this book is called Life Studies or How to Live. And it's illustrated in the biographies of Bunyan and a few other people. So let's look at the beginning. It says how to live, how to dispose worthily of that one life, which is all wherewith each of us has to face eternity, is confessedly the gravest problem which a sane man can be called to solve. A lump of salt is dissolved in a basin of water. The salt is gone, but its savor has reached the remotest atom in the basin. One life is like a lump of salt. Gradually it will melt away, and in a brief season it will be gone, but its savor will reach the remotest hour in the eternity to come. How is this one life to be lived? And so we're going to read more on this. We're going to talk about John Bunyan, the good soldier. And so stay tuned. In this series, young people and people in general will be encouraged to live lives that make sense. So thanks again for joining me. Please subscribe for more. Stay tuned. Every Sunday you'll be seeing a teaching series by God's grace that is released. So this summer, our study is on the book of Ecclesiastes. Let us be wise. The good news is that at the end of Solomon's life, he actually made things right. So stay tuned as we talk about how to live for the glory of God. Take care.